The night air was thick with silence, but inside my chest, my heart pounded like a drum I couldn't silence. I stood frozen in the hallway, clutching the wooden doorframe for support, my breath shallow, my palms clammy. The sight before my eyes was one that no mother, no wife, no woman on God's earth should ever have to endure. My husband, my partner of nearly 3 decades, wasn't alone. And the young woman with him, her dark curls spilling over his shoulder, was supposed to be my son's bride-to-be. I should have screamed. I should have fainted. But all I could do was stand there, feeling my knees weaken as my world unraveled in front of me. In that moment, I wanted to turn back time, to unhear the moans, to unsee the betrayal. But reality clutched me by the throat and wouldn't let me go. And that's where my story begins. But before I tell you exactly what I did after witnessing that scene, let me take you back to where it all started. Because betrayal doesn't appear out of thin air. It brews slowly, drop by drop, in the cracks of trust we never think to patch. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll see how one family dinner, one careless secret, and one devastating choice changed the course of my entire life. I was 55 when it all began, a woman who had poured every ounce of herself into her family. My son, Marcus, was the light of my life, bright, ambitious, handsome in a way that made people turn and look twice. He was my pride. I had raised him with values, with sacrifice, with late nights and early mornings, often skipping things I wanted so he could have what he needed. My husband, Gregory, had always been the provider type. Strong in presence, but quieter in affection. He worked long hours, often came home tired, but when he did smile, when he did wrap me in his arms, it used to feel like home. We weren't perfect, but we were steady, or so I thought. When Marcus introduced us to his fiancée, Lila, I admit, my heart leapt. She was stunning, yes, but more than that, she carried herself with a confidence that lit up every room. Her laughter was infectious, her words sweet. She leaned on Marcus in a way that made me believe she truly loved him. I remember the night she first had dinner at our home. Her hand brushed against mine when she helped me set the table, and she whispered, "Thank you for welcoming me, Mrs. Clara. I already feel like family. If only I had known." The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind. Dresses, catering, flowers, music, every detail was discussed, and somehow Lila and I grew closer. She'd call me sometimes, just to ask about recipes or to share a funny story from her day. I began to believe I had gained not just a daughter-in-law, but a daughter of my own. But as the weeks rolled on, I noticed things. Little things. Gregory's glances lasting a second too long when Lila laughed. The way she sometimes rested her hand on his arm during conversations. And once I caught them in the kitchen. Their heads bent close together. Their whispers silenced the second I entered the room. I brushed it off. Told myself I was imagining it. After all, what kind of woman even considers such a thing? That her husband and her son's fiancé might be sharing secrets. No, I convinced myself. I was being paranoid, until that night. Marcus had gone out with his friends, celebrating a last night of freedom before marriage. I had been upstairs, folding laundry, when I heard voices drifting from the living room. Laughter, then whispers, then a sound that froze my blood cold. My body moved on its own, creeping down the hallway, each step feeling heavier than the last. And when I reached the doorway, when I saw Gregory and Lila tangled together on the couch, my world cracked wide open. Do you know what betrayal feels like? It isn't just pain. It's confusion. It's anger. It's shame. It's the voice inside screaming, "How could you not see this coming?" I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I wanted to scream, but my voice was buried beneath the weight of disbelief. I must have made a sound, though, because Gregory's head shot up, his eyes meeting mine. And the look on his face, it wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was annoyance, as though I had interrupted something trivial. "Clara," he muttered, standing up, his shirt half unbuttoned. Lila scrambled, her face flushed, her hands trembling as she tried to straighten her dress. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, but the words tasted like poison in the air. Not what it looks like. That line people use when the truth is glaring, undeniable. I backed away, my heart slamming against my ribcage. "How could you—" The words barely left my lips. Gregory stepped closer, his expression shifting, his jaw tightening. "You don't understand," but I couldn't listen. I couldn't stay. I turned and fled, my vision blurred with tears. Upstairs, I collapsed onto the bed, clutching the sheets as if they could hold me together when everything else was falling apart. And in that moment, something inside me broke, not just as a wife but as a mother, because how could I tell Marcus? How could I shatter his happiness with the truth that the woman he loved, the woman he was about to marry, had already betrayed him with his own father? I lay there trembling, replaying the scene over and over. Each time it cut deeper, each time I felt my chest tighten until I could barely breathe. But then a thought crept in. A dangerous, heavy thought. If I stayed silent, if I pretended I hadn't seen what I saw, then Marcus's life would march forward toward a wedding built on lies. But if I told him, if I revealed the truth, it would destroy him. I was trapped between silence and devastation. And that's when the knock came. Soft, hesitant. Lila's voice muffled through the wood. "Mrs. Clara, please. Can I explain?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. But her words carried through the door, slicing into me. "Please don't tell Marcus. Please. It was a mistake. I don't know what came over me. I love him, I do. Please don't ruin this for us." My stomach churned. My ears rang. I pressed my palms to my face, praying for strength, praying for guidance. But deep down, I already knew. Whatever choice I made, my life would never be the same again. And little did I realize, that knock on my door was only the beginning. The storm had only just started to brew. And what awaited me on the other side was darker than anything I could have ever imagined. Because betrayal doesn't stop where you think it does. It digs deeper, it spreads wider, and when the truth finally comes out, it leaves nothing but ashes behind. To be continued. The knock at my bedroom door wouldn't stop. It was soft at first, tentative, like a timid child seeking forgiveness. But as the minutes passed, it grew more insistent. "Mrs. Clara, please, just talk to me, please." Her voice carried desperation, a tremor that betrayed her guilt. But I couldn't move. I sat there on the bed, arms wrapped tight around myself, staring at the wall as though I could disappear into it. Gregory's footsteps joined hers in the hallway, heavier, slower, commanding. Clara opened the door. "Let's talk about this like adults." Adults. That word stung. Adults didn't betray the people who loved them most. Adults didn't tear apart a family for lust, for selfishness. I bit my lip until I tasted iron, trying to silence the scream clawing up my throat. But I didn't answer. Not then. Not after the knock finally stopped. I must have sat there for hours, frozen in the dark. My thoughts circled like vultures, tearing at every memory, every smile, every promise Gregory had ever made. How many were lies? How long had this been going on? And worst of all, how could I tell my son? At some point, exhaustion dragged me into a restless sleep. When I opened my eyes, the morning light spilled weakly through the curtains, but the heaviness in my chest hadn't lifted. I forced myself up, washed my face, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were swollen, my hair a tangled mess, my cheeks pale. The woman staring back at me didn't look like Clara anymore. She looked like a ghost. Downstairs, the house was eerily quiet. No laughter, no clinking dishes, no sound of Gregory reading the newspaper like he always did. For a moment, I thought they were gone, that maybe I had dreamed the whole thing. But when I stepped into the kitchen, reality greeted me in the form of an untouched cup of coffee sitting on the counter, steam long gone, and then her voice. "Good morning." "Mrs. Clara." Lila stood near the dining table, her eyes swollen, her hands twisting the hem of her blouse. She looked wrecked, like she hadn't slept either. I froze. My breath caught in my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to turn away, to leave, but I stayed rooted in place. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I know what you saw, and I can't take it back. But it was a mistake. I swear it was a mistake. I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. I love Marcus. I do." Her words poured out like a flood, desperate, pleading. But they only made me feel sicker. Confused? My voice came out colder than I intended. You call climbing into my husband's arms confusion? She flinched, her eyes filling with tears. I don't know why it happened. He comforted me when Marcus wasn't around. He listened. And one thing led to another. But it doesn't mean anything. Please don't tell him. If you tell Marcus, it'll destroy everything. And I can't lose him. Please, Mrs. Clara, I'm begging you. I stared at her, my hands trembling. The audacity, the nerve of her standing there, asking me to protect her when she had gutted me with her betrayal. Before I could respond, the door opened, and Gregory walked in. His eyes darted from me to Lila, his expression unreadable. Clara, he said evenly, we need to sit down. All three of us. We need to talk about this before it gets out of hand. My head snapped toward him. Out of hand? Gregory, you slept with our son's fiancée. How much more out of hand could this possibly get? His jaw tightened. Lower your voice. You'll wake Marcus. The mention of my son's name made my stomach twist. He was still asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware that his world was about to shatter. I looked between them, the man I had built a life with, and the woman who was supposed to be my son's future. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. I couldn't keep their secret. Not forever. But I also knew the truth was a weapon. And once unleashed, it would cut Marcus deeper than any blade. I can't do this, I whispered, my voice breaking. I can't look at either of you right now. I turned, rushing out of the kitchen, out of the house, needing air, space, anything but their faces. I walked until my legs ached, my breath ragged. By the time I returned, Marcus was awake, smiling, full of energy as he chatted about last night's outing. He wrapped me in a hug, his warmth breaking me in ways I couldn't explain. Mom, he said, grinning. Can you believe it? In just a few weeks, I'll be married. Married! I forced a smile, nodding, even as my chest ached with the weight of the secret pressing against my ribs. That night, I sat on the porch, staring at the stars, wrestling with the choice before me. Tell Marcus and destroy him, or stay silent and let him walk into a marriage built on lies. But the decision was ripped from me sooner than I expected. 2 days later, I walked into the living room to find Marcus holding Lila's phone, his face pale, his hands trembling. On the screen, a message from Gregory, a message that left no room for doubt. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Marcus's eyes lifted, wide and broken, as he turned to me. Mom, what is this? Tell me this isn't real. And just like that, the secret I had fought to bury burst into the open, threatening to destroy us all. To be continued. Mom, what is this? Tell me this isn't real. Marcus's voice trembled as he shoved the phone toward me. My breath caught in my throat. On the screen, Gregory's words blazed like fire. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. For a moment, time stood still. The sound of the clock ticking on the wall was deafening, the weight of my son's gaze unbearable. My lips parted, but no words came. Answer me. Marcus's voice cracked, breaking into the silence. His hand shook, his eyes searching mine, desperate for a lie, desperate for anything that would make this nightmare vanish. I wanted to shield him, to wrap him in the same arms that once held his feverish body as a boy, to tell him the world was still safe, still kind, but I couldn't. The truth had already carved its way into his life, and there was no undoing it. Marcus, I whispered, my chest aching, I didn't want you to find out this way. His eyes widened, the last flicker of hope draining from them. So it's true? His voice was raw, strangled. Dad and Lila? Before I could answer, the sound of footsteps came from the hallway. Gregory appeared, his expression tightening when he saw Marcus holding the phone. Behind him, Lila hovered, her face pale, her lips trembling. Marcus's whole body stiffened. He looked at his father with a fury I had never seen before. Tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't sleep with my fiancé. Gregory's jaw clenched, his eyes darting briefly toward me, then back to Marcus. Son, it's complicated. You don't understand? The words barely left his mouth before Marcus lunged forward, his fist slamming into Gregory's jaw with a sickening crack. Gregory stumbled back, crashing into the wall. Lila screamed, rushing forward. But Marcus shoved her away, his face twisted with rage and heartbreak. "You disgusting traitor," Marcus shouted, his chest heaving. "You're supposed to be my father, my role model, and you—" He turned on Lila, his voice breaking. "You were supposed to love me. You said you loved me." Tears streamed down Lila's cheeks as she reached for him. "I do, Marcus, I do. It was a mistake, I swear. I wasn't thinking, Don't you dare say it was a mistake," Marcus roared, stepping back as though her touch burned him. "You don't accidentally sleep with someone. And with my father?" His voice cracked, the betrayal cutting deeper than any knife. Gregory, holding his jaw, finally found his voice. "Marcus, listen. No!" Marcus cut him off, his eyes blazing. "I don't want to hear it. You're dead to me. Both of you." The words hung heavy in the air, final and sharp. I stood there, frozen, my hands trembling, my heart shattering for my son. This was the moment I had dreaded, the nightmare I had tried to prevent. But there was no undoing it now. Marcus stormed upstairs, the slam of his bedroom door shaking the walls. Lila collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Gregory straightened, his face dark with anger, and turned on me. "This is your fault," he spat, his voice low and venomous. My breath caught. "My fault? If you had just kept your mouth shut, if you had handled this like an adult, none of this would have happened." I stared at him in disbelief. "You betrayed me. You betrayed your son, and you dare blame me?" His eyes narrowed, cold and sharp. "You've always been weak, Clara. Always too emotional, too soft. You couldn't give me what I needed, and now you're acting like the victim." His words sliced through me, but I refused to let him see me break. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze with as much strength as I could muster. "I may be soft, Gregory, but at least I'm not cruel. At least I didn't destroy the very family I claim to love." For a moment his face hardened, as though he might strike me, but then he turned away, muttering under his breath, "You'll regret this." That night, the house was a graveyard of silence. Marcus didn't come down for dinner. Lila locked herself in the guest room. Gregory left and didn't return until long past midnight, and I sat alone at the table, staring at the flickering candlelight, wondering how everything had crumbled so quickly. The days that followed were no easier. Marcus refused to speak to either his father or Lila. He barely ate, barely slept, pacing the house like a ghost of himself. Lila tried to apologize, tried to reach him, but he shut her out completely. Gregory, on the other hand, grew colder, angrier, snapping at me for the smallest things, blaming me for the fracture tearing our family apart. I tried to hold it together, to be the anchor Marcus needed, but inside I was drowning too. The whispers in my mind grew louder each night. What if he never recovers? What if this ruins him forever? And then, something happened that pushed us all over the edge. One evening, after days of silence, Marcus came downstairs with his suitcase packed. His eyes were hollow, his face set with determination. "I can't stay here," he said flatly. "Not in this house. Not with them." His voice cracked on the last word. "Marcus, please," I begged, rushing to his side. "Don't do this. We can figure it out. We can heal." He shook his head, his eyes glistening. "No, Mom, there's nothing to fix. He's not my father anymore. And he swallowed hard. "She's nothing to me." Lila appeared in the doorway, her face stricken. "Marcus, please don't go. Give me a chance to make it right." His glare cut her down instantly. "You had your chance. You made your choice." Gregory's voice rumbled from the kitchen, harsh and bitter. "If you leave this house, don't expect to come back." Marcus turned, his voice sharp as steel. "Don't worry. I won't." He stormed out the door, his suitcase bumping against the floor, the slam of the door echoing through the house like a final nail in the coffin. I stood there, my chest aching, tears streaming down my face as I watched my only son walk away. I wanted to chase him, to pull him back, to beg him to stay, but my legs wouldn't move. Gregory leaned against the doorway, his arms crossed, his eyes cold. "You see what you've done? You've torn this family apart." I turned to him, my voice trembling with rage. "No, Gregory. You did this. You and her." Lila sobbed quietly in the corner, her body shaking. But I couldn't comfort her. Not anymore. And as I stood there in the ruins of my home, I realized something. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep letting Gregory control me, break me, destroy everything I held dear. For the first time in a long time, a spark of determination lit inside me. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this. I wasn't going to let him drag me down with him. I wiped my tears, straightened my back, and whispered to myself, "It's time to fight back." But little did I know, the fight had only just begun, and the next blow waiting for me would cut deeper than anything I had faced yet. To be continued. The house felt empty without Marcus. His laughter, his footsteps, even the way he used to leave his shoes by the door, it was all gone. And the silence he left behind wasn't peaceful. It was haunting. Every corner of the house reminded me of what had been ripped away. I spent hours staring at my phone, waiting for it to buzz with a message, praying to hear his voice. When he finally did call, his tone was hollow. He was staying with a friend, he said. And he didn't want to talk about his father or Lila. I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, the brokenness, and it cut through me like glass. "I just need space." "Mom," he said quietly, I can't be around them. Please understand." "I do, sweetheart," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Just promise me one thing. Don't shut me out too." "I won't," he murmured, and then the line went dead. I clutched the phone to my chest, sobbing silently. Marcus was all I had left, and even he was slipping away, drifting farther with every breath. Gregory, on the other hand, didn't seem broken at all. If anything, he grew colder, sharper, as though Marcus's absence had given him permission to shed the last shred of pretense. He came and went as he pleased, sometimes disappearing for nights at a time, sometimes bringing Lila along as if daring me to protest. One night, I confronted him. "Gregory, this can't continue. You can't parade her around in this house when you know what it's done to Marcus." "To me," he sneered, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. "This is my house, Clara. I'll do as I please. If you don't like it, you know where the door is." My hands clenched into fists, my body trembling with rage. "After everything we've built together, after 30 years of marriage, you're willing to throw it all away for, what? Lust, a fling?" His eyes flicked to mine, cold and unflinching. "She makes me feel alive. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." The words slammed into me like a blow, my breath caught, my chest aching. But I refused to let him see me break. "Alive?" I spat. "You call tearing your son's heart out alive? You call destroying our family alive? You're not alive, Gregory. You're a coward." His face darkened, and for a moment I thought he might hit me. But instead, he downed the rest of his drink and stormed upstairs, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Lila lingered in the kitchen doorway, her eyes red from crying. "Mrs. Clara, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I don't even know how it started anymore. I don't know what to do." I turned on her, my anger boiling over. "What to do? You should have thought about that before you betrayed my son, before you tore this family apart." She broke down sobbing, sinking to the floor. For a brief moment I almost pitied her. She was young, foolish, caught in a web of her own making. But pity couldn't erase what she had done. Pity couldn't heal Marcus's broken heart. So I left her there, crying on the cold tile, and walked away. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of the betrayal grew heavier. I tried to keep busy, gardening, cleaning, volunteering at the church, but no matter what I did, the house still felt poisoned, and Gregory's shadow loomed over every moment. One afternoon, after returning from the market, I found him sitting at the dining table with Lila, papers spread out before them. His eyes met mine, hard and calculating. "What's this?" I asked cautiously. "Finances," he said flatly. "I've decided I want the house in my name alone. You'll get a small allowance, of course. But this place, it's mine." My blood ran cold. "You can't do that. This is our home. We built this together." He smirked. "Correction, I built this. You just lived here." The audacity of his words left me speechless. Lila stared down at the table, unable to meet my eyes. Something snapped inside me then. For years, I had allowed Gregory to make the rules, to hold the power. I had silenced my own needs, sacrificed my own dreams, all for the sake of family. And what had it gotten me? Betrayal. Humiliation. A son driven from his home. No more. That night I sat in my room, staring at the boxes of old photographs, letters, and memories tucked away in the closet. Among them was a faded envelope with my name written in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a letter she had written to me years ago, words of encouragement she had left before she passed. "Clara," it read, "never forget your strength. Life will test you, but you are stronger than you think. Don't let anyone dim your light." Tears blurred my vision as I read the words over and over. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of something I thought I had lost: hope. I looked around the room, at the house that had become my prison, and I whispered to myself, I won't let him win. The next morning, I began to plan. Small steps at first, squirreling away money from the grocery budget, reaching out to old friends I hadn't spoken to in years, quietly gathering information about my legal rights. Gregory noticed the change in me, of course. He sneered when I held my head a little higher, mocked me when I stayed out later than usual. But I didn't let his words crush me anymore. Each insult only fueled the fire inside me. One evening, as I sat in the living room with a notebook in my lap, planning my next move, Gregory stormed in, his face twisted with anger. "What are you plotting now, Clara? Going to run to Marcus and badmouth me again? Or maybe gossip to your church friends?" I looked up at him, steady and unflinching. "I don't need to badmouth you, Gregory. You've done a fine job of that yourself." His eyes narrowed, his fists clenching. "Careful," he growled, but I didn't flinch. "Not this time." "No, you be careful. Because I'm done being your doormat. I'm done being silent. You wanted a fight, Gregory? You've got one?" His face darkened, his breath heavy, but he didn't respond. He turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sat there, heart pounding, my hands shaking. But I felt stronger than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back. What I didn't know, though, was that Gregory wasn't about to let me go easily. He had plans of his own, and the storm that was about to hit would test every ounce of strength I had left. To be continued. The morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, but it did nothing to warm me. My body moved, but my spirit was weary. Still, I reminded myself, I wasn't just existing anymore. I was preparing. Gregory thought he had me cornered, but I was learning to carve a path forward. I hadn't told Marcus much about my plans. I didn't want to weigh him down. He was already fighting his own battles, and every time we spoke, I could hear the ache in his voice. He missed home, but he couldn't bear to set foot in the house that had betrayed him. "Mom," he said one evening on the phone, "promise me you'll be okay." I don't trust him. Not after what he did. I forced a smile through my tears. "I'll be okay, Marcus. I'm stronger than you think." But in truth, the storm was brewing faster than I had imagined. 2 weeks later, Gregory came home early. His tie hung loosely around his neck, and his expression was darker than I'd ever seen it. Lila trailed behind him, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. "What's going on?" I asked cautiously. Gregory dropped a stack of envelopes onto the table. Final notices, bank letters, overdue payments. "We're in trouble," he muttered, pouring himself a drink with shaky hands. I froze. For years he had boasted about our stability, his sharp business sense, his control. And now, just like that, the empire he'd built was crumbling. Lila collapsed into a chair, covering her face. "I told you this would happen," she whispered. "I told you we couldn't keep lying, Gregory." I blinked. "Lying about what?" Gregory's glare shut her up, but it was too late. My heart began to race. "Tell me," I pressed. "What lie?" Lila shook her head, tears slipping through her fingers. I can't do this anymore." She stood abruptly and fled upstairs, leaving me alone with Gregory. I stared at him, waiting for the truth. He poured another drink instead. "She's weak," he muttered. "She doesn't understand what it takes to survive." And in that moment, I knew. There was more rot under the surface than I had realized. The following days were a blur of tension. Gregory grew restless, snapping at me over the smallest things, disappearing for hours. Lila rarely left her room, her sobs echoing down the hall late into the night. Then one evening, I heard the front door slam. Marcus stood in the entryway, his eyes blazing with fury. "Where is he?" he demanded. I rushed forward, clutching his arm. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I got a call," he said, his chest heaving. "From Lila." Before I could respond, Gregory appeared at the top of the stairs, his face twisted with anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" Marcus's fists clenched. "You think you can steal my life, my fiancé, and I'll just walk away? You disgust me." The air crackled with tension. I stood frozen, torn between my son and my husband, my heart pounding in my chest. "Enough," I cried, stepping between them. "This ends now. No more lies, no more secrets. If there's something I don't know, it comes out today." Gregory sneered. "You want the truth, Clara? Fine. The truth is, I was never happy with you. I stayed out of obligation, out of habit. Lila, she gave me what you couldn't." The words stung, but I refused to crumble. I met his gaze, steady and cold. "And what exactly did she give you, Gregory? A thrill? A distraction? Or was it just another way to feed that empty pit inside you?" Lila appeared on the stairs then, her face pale but resolute. "Stop lying," she whispered. "Tell them." Gregory's jaw tightened. "Don't," but she pressed on. "Marcus, I was never faithful to you. Not just with your father. I let him manipulate me, use me. And then when I tried to leave, he threatened me. I thought I had no choice." My stomach dropped. Marcus's face turned ashen, his eyes filling with betrayal. "You're lying," he said hoarsely. "Tell me you're lying." But she didn't answer. Marcus staggered back, clutching his chest as if the air had been knocked out of him. I caught his arm, but he shook me off, his voice breaking. "Both of you. You make me sick." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I turned on Gregory, my fury boiling over. "You've destroyed him. You've destroyed everything," he scoffed, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "He'll get over it. He's weak. He always has been." Something inside me snapped. All the years of silence, of swallowing my pain, of shrinking myself for the sake of peace. They burst free like a dam breaking. "No," I said, my voice steady, trembling with power. "You're the weak one, Gregory. You hide behind control, behind cruelty, because you're terrified of being nothing. But guess what? You already are." His face flushed red, his fists shaking, but before he could speak, Lila stepped forward. "She's right. You ruined me too, and I'm done covering for you." The room went still. Gregory's mask cracked for the first time. He looked between us, his chest rising and falling. Then, without a word, he grabbed his coat and stormed out of the house. I sank into a chair, shaking. Lila collapsed beside me, sobbing. For a long time, we sat in silence. And then, softly, I said, "You need to leave, Lila. Not just this house. This town. You need to find a way to start over." She nodded through her tears. "I know. I'm sorry, Mrs. Clara. For everything." And the next morning, she was gone. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost unnervingly so. I filed for divorce. I sold the house. And slowly, I began to rebuild. Not just my life, but myself. Marcus didn't come around right away. He needed space, time to heal. But one afternoon, as I was tending to the roses in my new garden, I heard his voice behind me. "Need some help with those, Mom?" I turned, my breath catching. He stood there, older somehow, wearier. But he was home. Tears streamed down my face as I hugged him, holding on as if I'd never let go. We sat on the porch that evening, the sun setting in shades of gold and crimson. He told me about his struggles, his pain, his slow steps toward healing. I told him about my plans, my new beginnings, the strength I had found within myself. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel so dark. I had lost so much, but I had also discovered something I never thought possible. My own resilience. My own voice. Gregory's betrayal had shattered me, but it had also freed me. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, I whispered a silent promise to myself. Never again would I let anyone dim my light, because I was Clara, and I had survived.